there's a chat feature which you can send something. Again, we'll read that up to 3 minutes. And not that we have any voting tonight, but as again, if we have any voting, it'll be roll call. We'll call on each of you and you'll say yay or nay, and that'll be part of the record. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wong. All right, let's move to the Pledge of Allegiance. I think Stephanie is going to provide the flag for us this evening.
Yes.
Thank you, Stephanie. Commissioner Martos, would you like to lead us in the pledge?
I would be honored. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to roll call.
Okay. Commissioner Launder?
Here.
Commissioner Martos?
Here.
Vice Chair Wetton?
Here.
Chair Israelit?
Here. Okay, and as I mentioned, Commissioner Bush was not able to meet because of lack of power in Utah. So, okay, next we'll move to approval of the minutes. We are just going to be approving the minutes from the July meeting. August is not ready yet. Has everyone had a chance to review any corrections with that? And are there any changes that still need to be made? Okay, does anyone want to move to accept these?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay.
Commissioner Launder?
Yes.
Commissioner Martos?
Yay.
Vice Chair Wetton?
Yes.
And Chair Israelit?
Yes. Great. Okay. Next, we will move to public comments that are not on agenda items. Do we have any members of the public who have emailed or are joining us tonight?
I didn't get any emails from the public comment inbox.
Okay. And I do not see anyone else on the Zoom with us tonight. So seeing none, we'll close the public comment section and move on to discussion action items. We do have someone with us who can answer some of the questions that we had about how the retailers are feeling about the Broadway and Burlingame Ave street closures. So we're going to move item 6C to be first so that that person can join us since they have other commitments later. So please take it away, Mr. Wong.
Thank you, Chair Israelit. Let me get the share screen. And again, we'll quickly just go through the latest of what's happening with the Broadway street closure as well as parklets. And then if you have some questions regarding on some feedback we've gotten from retailers, as Chair Israelit pointed out, we have our economic specialist, Joe Sanfilippo, on, and he can answer some questions, but he just has a commitment at 8, so that's why we switched it up. So to get started, we're talking about the street closures that we've had for both Burlingame Avenue and Broadway. I'd like to point out that Broadway now is occurring from 4 p.m. Saturday to 10 p.m. Sunday. They are continuing it through this. On Burlingame Avenue, there's been a change. Last weekend was the last street closure, and now again, what I'll be showing you are the slides, quickly going over it. In green is what the ones that we had kind of proposed. If there were each restaurant wanted, here's where we would go. The ones in red are actually the restaurant or the parklets we will be installing, and they will be installed. The goal is tomorrow they get delivered, and the crew will work through the night after the restaurants closed into Saturday morning while there's no one out there installing the parklets that have been marked out. So hopefully we can get them in time for all, if not most of the businesses, and most of them are restaurants. So here we had originally thought there would be 7. There's actually 5 businesses that are interested in having them. Continue down. That's the 1100 block. The next block, we just have 2 between Park and Lorton. And actually one of them, this is the one that's not a restaurant business. It's right here. I believe it's La Vie. It's the personal services. They have a tent out there and folks are in chairs inside their parklet. So that's the one that's different. And with this, it changes how we lay out things because the council has decided that we need a 20-foot buffer between any one of these personal services and a food establishment that has a parklet, and you can understand why. So this space here obviously wouldn't be used, and that's why there's a gap there, and we'll see what happens. And again, the difficulty in this now is as businesses pop up, it's kind of just not laying them out. It's kind of, well, what kind of business is it? And there are some other issues because space is tight on the avenue, given that we have a number of restaurants. But here we thought we were going to lose 10 spaces. We're actually losing 4. And between Primrose and Park, this is probably one of the more denser ones. We've got 3 of them. Crepe Vine, Mediterranean Kebabs, and Cafe Central are the ones. The other businesses, I believe the other one, the retailer here or restaurant, Drew the Juice, we may be able to put them on Primrose if we need to. And I think the preference from what I've heard, but they haven't submitted an application yet, is that's where they would like to go. The next block between Primrose and El Camino, the next half, we've got several here. We've got Rasa, we have, Alana's, Rasa, and when we get over here, it gets a little tougher. The space between Delfino and Sixtos, it's tight because we're right up against the crosswalk. And one of the businesses is just reluctant to support a parklet at this time. So that leaves only 2 spaces, one in front of Delfino and one in front of Sixtos. We had a meeting with the economic subcommittee earlier this week and agreed that they would share one parklet. And they've been sharing some of their tables and chairs because they operate at slightly different times on different days. And apparently it's been working out. So that will continue. And on the last block, we have Sephora. So Rise gets this one in red here, and Sephora gets this one, even though they are a ways away from their restaurant, because Panda Express showed reluctance to have a parklet, and they didn't want a space there. But Sephora is able to gain the support of the 2 businesses here, so we pushed it over there, and they were all right with bringing food down there. So out of all that, we have roughly 100 on-street parking spaces on Burlingame Avenue, and we're using parklets. We're going to lose 30 of them, so not too bad. And again, there's also additional space because we do have an existing tables and chairs program that a lot of the restaurants are using, so they will continue to have that if the parklet doesn't negate that. So that is where we're at this point. So if you have any questions regarding it, the parklets, as of right now, there is no end date to them. I think loosely we've been thinking this, we don't know how this will go on, but we were anticipating it might go on through the end of the year. And so we're also tweaking it to see what we can do to help extend it beyond to that part. So welcome to any questions you guys may have.
Thank you very much. Anyone who is not commenting, if you could please put your Zoom on mute so that we don't hear any background noise, that would be awesome. We'll take questions. I did have a question for you, Mr. Wong. It seems a little unfair that Sapore's Parklet is so far away from their restaurant front. There was no way, I mean, you get right of refusal for the Parklet that would be directly in front of your restaurant. So that is why they have to travel that distance. I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure, and it is this, unlike the tables and chairs where they are kind of, they paid into assessment, but they're filling out a permit where that frontage is theirs to use. The on-street parking spaces are still the cities, and we're just trying to, balance everybody. Someone's non-support because for whatever reason, we're trying to balance that with the other businesses' need for it. So, and again, because they were able to obtain the support of the other businesses, and they're willing to do that, having walked the streets and spoken with many of the managers or restaurant owners, and they were fine with it. We're okay with that. So most of the time, yes, we try to get the business in front because it's obviously convenient and it's easier. They're able to serve right there. And for Sephora, they've also expanded, they've been able to expand their tables and chairs past their frontage right now. So what they're looking at is just even more space. So it's a balancing, not just a couple of things, it's many things. And there's a lot of things the city might not normally allow. Like right now, they shouldn't be going past their frontage, but given these extraordinary circumstances, we're just kind of, okay, as long as we don't get any reports of anything, we're gonna kind of just continue that way and work with them.
Thanks. Thanks. I just wanted to make sure that Sapore was okay with that less than ideal distance. So thanks for answering that question. I have another question in addition. Does anyone else, I don't want to hog the question time, but I think no one else has their hand up. Oh, Commissioner Lander, why don't you go?
I can't find my blue hand because I didn't look, but I know where it is. But in any event, I had a few questions and just a couple of clarifications. So I guess the clarifications first. As I understand it, there's no charge to retailers for their Parklet. True?
That is correct.
And
as of right now.
As of right now. And they have to have a certain number of days they commit to use it, 3 days?
Correct, in 3 days. And just because Councilman Ortiz had seen areas where Parklets were installed, but they weren't being used, and that was just loss of parking, and he was concerned about that. So there was, they felt 3 days was sufficient to have them, and I believe they have to even list on the application the days that they will be involved, because otherwise they could have the Parklet just go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then it's empty, and that's not the goal of this. The goal of this is try to provide space that they don't have right now because of the.
Oh, so they couldn't go Friday, Saturday, Sunday if that's what they wanted.
We're trying to avoid that. I have to look at the application, but they have to list the days that they're going.
And then somebody will monitor that.
Each time we're staff who's there and set up, or myself, we're taking trips down and taking a look, not policing anything, but just making sure things are kind of running the way we hope they are.
Right. And then the sidewalks will still have tables, but as well as Parklets, or they'll just be tables at the restaurants that don't have Parklets? Sure.
So you have a combination of that. If you don't, right now, in order to operate a table, to have tables on Burlingame Avenue, you need to fill out an application and provide your insurance. The same process we're using for the Parklets. But if you have that for the tables and chairs, you can still have a Parklet. But if you don't have the tables and chairs permit, you still would need that if you're going to try to do both.
Okay, so you need a permit for either one, but you could have both if you wanted to.
You could have both, but the other one, there is I think there's a fee that's always been, and in fairness to the ones that have been paying it, I think they're continuing that
For the sidewalk table.
for the sidewalk and chairs and tables on the sidewalk.
Okay. I'm just wondering how difficult it would be for a regular old person to walk down the sidewalks if there's tables there and then there's a parklet there and.
Sure, and as part of it, on their permit or on their application, we still need to have ADA access, no different than when you go through right now. That doesn't change, and that was a concern of staffs, and that's when we have to make sure we monitor that that is an impact, because that's a different story.
Okay, and then one last monopolization is can retailers still apply for permits for parklets and or tables, or is it closed?
Well, I think it's closed right now because retailers are able to enter their store. I mean, it's just the different requirements or regulations for each different business. So because of that, and they are not eligible for a parklet.
But restaurants, if they decide, gee, I think I want to do it now, they can still apply and.
It just, yeah, they can. It just gets a little tougher because at some point we may not have enough barriers, and even more so, we may not, the space you want may be gone.
Right. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you. You answered all my questions and concerns, so appreciate it. Thanks.
No problem.
Sorry, Co-Chair Wetton. Vice Chair Wetton.
Vice Chair, yeah, don't give me too much authority here. So I just one quick question. I noticed in some of the maps, you had red parklets on both sides of the street, but that might just been a quirk of the map. There'll still be through traffic in between.
Yeah, and sorry, I just, for whatever reason, I just wanted to show it. I wanted to show what we had anticipated, and what in red is what's occurring as of today, what we've marked out. So just to give you an idea that there's, our worst case scenario of having every business that was eligible didn't occur.
So where you do have parklets across the street from each other, I mean, are we still going to be able to maintain 2 lanes going each way?
So the parklets are only, the parklet is in the parklet. That's just adjacent to the space.
Right, okay. That's
Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I thought that might be the case. I just want to clarify. And then I just want to know are we going to circle back to Broadway? I'll hold my questions if we're going to circle back to Broadway at some point in the presentation or.
No, I mean, it was just a quick update. Broadway continues as is. So if you want to, I mean, it's okay.
So to clarify that it's closed through Sunday lunch then?
Correct.
It's closed all day Sunday?
It's all day Sunday. That's what I think they desired, because their concern was they have a lot of this personal services occur on Saturday, and more businesses are closed on Sunday, and so they thought they'd get that whole.
Have you or anybody on your team gone down to Broadway? I know it's hard because it's the weekend, and observed the utilization on the weekend.
I've been down early on. I haven't gone down the last couple weekends, but I went down early on, and I mean, it's and maybe Mr. Sanfilippo can speak of this, but the parking, according to John Kavarian when I was on the call, was the parking lots are about half capacity.
Yeah.
And there are people there. He says they're happy with it. And city, I know we're happy with it because we haven't gotten the complaints that we got on Burlingame Avenue. People are a little bit more, they're masking up. They're not, it's not a party atmosphere, I think, as
right.
kind of described it. And they've definitely, to credit Mr. Kavarian, he says he's out there with the tape measure, making sure tables are spread apart and walking and, mask up, right? Because he understands the need for this. And
yeah. Well, if I might, just if this is the best time, I mean, I've been down there a few times. Sure. And one, I would agree, a few quick observations. One, I would agree that the crowds are fit for purpose. They're there to dine. I think they are respectful. People aren't there to loiter, right? And just hang out and create a health issue. So I agree with that. And I would say what I've observed is in the evenings, the 2 middle blocks of Broadway are very well utilized. So the block in front of Roca, and then the block one to the west, which is in front of Broadway Prime and those restaurants. It's very well utilized. I did talk to some restaurant owners. They're all very happy about it, whether or not they use it. I talked to one restaurant owner who doesn't use it himself, and he was still happy about it. No one reported any kind of disruptions to takeout, which is something I was really worried about. And there is plenty of parking in the lots. So I agree with all those things. I would say that there's a third block we're closing, which is, I guess, I'm struggling to identify it, but it's the block to the east of Roca towards California that just is always empty. Like we're closing this block and we're not using it at all from what I can gather. And I've been down there a few times, so maybe we'd want to get a few more observations, but it seems like we've got one block down there we're closing and we're not using. And then my observation, I've only been there once, but my observation over lunchtime is also it's not very utilized during the day on Sunday for lunch. There's some tables out there, you see a few people, but really you could probably consolidate those people onto the sidewalk and be okay. Give people sidewalk permits to push the tables at the sidewalk and keep Broadway open. So yeah, that's my observation. I think it's a big success in the evenings for the 2 out of the 3 blocks. It's like being used and it's worthwhile. There's a third block. I just don't see anyone using it. So I don't know if we're closing it for no reason. And on lunchtime, it seems like not so utilized.
Through the chair.
Yes.
If it's all right, I'll go ahead and I think I can respond to Commissioner Wetton's 2 questions. First one being, yes, we at the last meeting, we did discuss that first block between Chula Vista and Paloma, I believe.
Yeah.
It isn't, there hasn't been as many businesses using or putting tables out. The concern of opening that portion is now at Paloma, the street gets narrower and we've had some difficulties of cars, and you can only go northbound on Paloma, making that right turn. And they've taken out previously some of the larger trucks, if they have to access it, have taken out some of the equipment there. It's just because it's a tighter street and that bulb out. So that was a concern. We didn't want to have that because when you turn on Chula Vista, it's a little wider there.
Yeah.
And that was the decision not to do that. It was discussed at the last meeting of.
I'm sorry, are you talking about Laguna?
Yes, I'm sorry, did I say Lorton?
You said Paloma.
Oh, yes, between Chula Vista and, yeah. God, yes, sorry, that first block, because we have the block between California and Chula Vista is open, and then that next section, Chula Vista Laguna, is closed off. So that was the difficulty of making the turns with those bulb outs.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to trying to open it up, that was discussed, but it's literally like doing another closure. These are weekend closures, and it would be 2 weekend closures in one. And it was just council just thought that it would be tough. It was not the best use of staff at that point. And since a lot of the businesses were closed, it made sense just to continue the closure without having to pick it up and then put it out again.
Okay.
That was a decision by them.
Okay, right, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks for your input.
I have another question going back to Burlingame Ave. One of the things that I've noticed is, well, the sidewalks are wider on Burlingame Avenue than Broadway, but my thing that I've noticed, and I've mentioned it, I think in a previous meeting, is that when we have 2 rows of tables out on the sidewalks and on Burlingame Avenue, with or without a parklet, it doesn't matter, but you're not able to maintain 6 feet away from an unmasked diner if you want to use the sidewalk. Now that we have these parklets, which I think work really well, like I've seen in the city, like in the Marina District, Was there any discussion about limiting outdoor tables to be just on one side of the sidewalk to really give you safe 6 feet away from a diner?
Through Chair, that's a good question. I will check into it because our existing sidewalk permit, I think, obviously there are certain ways, even the way you orient the tables, right? We don't want to orient tables so someone's backing and going into the curb. They have to be parallel with the street. So I'll have to get back to you on that to see. I know there's supposed to be spacing, and I don't recall if there's supposed to be, if there's an allowance for tables on both sides. So you have to walk through, when you're walking on the sidewalk, there's tables on right and left of you. I will check on that, but yeah, that's good. But definitely, as far as ADA, there needs to be space, but I understand yours that now even that 6 feet that we need for ADA is reduced for social distancing, so.
Right, I mean, in effect, you would need, if there were 2 rows of tables, you would need 12 feet plus your body width or whatever to be between those tables, which I'm sure is not happening. So I would like the staff to maybe take a look at that and ensure that that's not happening. And it, you know, since this has been done more through the city council, if we need to bring that up to them as an issue, I would think that would be pretty important.
And I'll see how it, and maybe we'll take it back and we'll take a look and see how it applies to the orders that we are working under. Because if you're if you're walking past someone, maybe it's not such an issue. But again, these are different times that we have to look at. But we'll definitely take a look at it. I've made the note, and I'll work with Mr. Sanfilipino, and we'll bring it up if need be.
Thank you. That'll make me feel much more comfortable from a public health standpoint. Is there anyone else who has a question or comment? Commissioner Martos, do you not want to see us, or do you? Please go ahead.
I raise my hand. Through the chair, Mr. Wong, a couple of quick questions. So what you're showing there on the screen, the vertical stacking of bars, is that one parklet or 2 parklets? And I apologize if you clarified this earlier. I was putting on my headset.
No
we
problem.
Probably talked about the legend.
And I didn't, but so the green is what I showed you last month, what we anticipated, you know, as far as if all the businesses that were restaurants and something. And I just wanted to show the red is the business that actually applied for the permit.
Right.
So all restaurants applied for it. So it should be one. That once those 2 spaces right there.
Yep.
Continue. So sorry.
Okay. No problem. And a follow up to that. So are all the parklets the same size?
I will say in general, yes. But as I pointed out at Sixtos here, it's tough to see, but we've got this planter median or this planter island with the crosswalk.
Yeah.
So it digs into a space that they could potentially use. And so, and moving them further this way, actually, I think Sixtos is further this way. I think Sixtos is actually here. My drawing is incorrect. They didn't want a parklet over here. So it went back to, they were going to be Delphina, and there's only basically 1 space in front of Delphina and Sixtos, and it's here. So that's the one location that they are going to share a single parklet. And we've spoken with both businesses, and they're okay with it as long as, you know, that I imagine that one business doesn't take over the entire parklet as theirs when they're eating. And they operate at different times. So they've been sharing tables and chairs. They just leave them out, and they've been sharing them during this. So say Sixtos is closed on Tuesday and they have their tables out. Delphina has been using their tables. So they've been kind of trying to work it out, given that that's one of the more unique ones. But in general, all the other spaces are roughly 300 square feet. If they're parallel parking spaces, there's 2 spaces. If they're angled, it works out that they get 3 spaces.
Okay, have any other restaurants requested multiple parklets? Do they feel they have enough business that they could fill up 2 parklets?
Sure.
Is
And
that
that
even feasible? Yeah.
that question on Tuesday when we're marking it was definitely asked. At this time, we're going with 2 just so we can get everything in. And I imagine we'll take feedback, and they'll speak up at the next economic development subcommittee meeting, or possibly even council if it comes up before then. But they've asked about that because some of them, and
Yeah.
we just tried to be fair by trying to get spaces, so we weren't looking and seeing how much interior square, how much you were losing. We weren't going to try to do all that beforehand. We just figured each business, so it's equitable that they have some space. They all get 2 spaces or 1 parklet, 2 spaces, and that allowed us to at least hit and start marking things out.
Okay. Okay. And then the last question. So not all parklets are created equal. I've seen some that are decorated and some that are just the barriers. So can, how does can the business put their own touch on a parklet if they want to, or do they need to get permit to do that? How does that work?
So we don't have a standard for parklets, but what we've been advising is they can dress up their parklets, right? At first it started, obviously it's not pleasant dining next to an orange construction barrier. So they could have screened it from the inside. We're allowing them to do things up because we don't know how long this is going to go. So they may need to have a little, and we're still working on what the leeway is, but to put a shelter on top. The businesses are responsible. So we've been trying to, they've brought in contractors that have worked on these, or they've got, specialty contractors that, basically ship it out in a crate and they could assemble it. So it's up to the business. And I think earlier on, there was a reluctance, but only because no one knew, you didn't want to spend $5,000, $10,000 on a parklet only to say, oh, yeah, guess what? We're taking the space back. So now knowing originally there was a September 30th deadline, and we're going to shoot past that. And then I think, just like I mentioned, the thoughts are this is going to go at least to the end of the year, and potentially they're able to, knowing that it frees them up that, okay, it's worth the investment of doing it. So I think you'll see more of them decorated, and then we're trying to rein some in, like some are starting to pull apart their barriers, and that's a safety concern that we want them to keep that. And obviously we've told them there's a certain height, because you build it all the way up, folks aren't gonna be able to see, or there's also the requirement that sides, so they can't enclose it. Otherwise they're no better off than being inside a building. So we're kind of going through this, and we're trying to, we're learning as well, but that's the way it is right now.
Okay. All right, very good. That's all the questions I had. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. And then I think Vice Chair Wetton has another question. Go
I
ahead.
know, apologies for taking another bite of the apple here.
Okay.
It occurred to me when Chair Israel was talking about the issues of spacing on the sidewalk. And one observation I had, and maybe I mentioned it last month, is in going to get takeout on Burlingame Ave, is the restaurants are actually purposely closing off their back doors. And, I think there's some good reasons for that, because they don't want people cutting through. But the other consequences, if anybody is coming for takeout, to get takeout, they're forced to go through the crowds. They're forced to walk through the diners. They're forced to walk on the sidewalks, and it adds traffic to the streets that maybe would be unnecessary. So I do wonder, as we create these parklets, it's not an issue. It's actually not an issue for the restaurants who have to take the parklet that's away from their dorefront. That works out actually well from this perspective. But for the restaurants that have the parklet right in front of their door, I do wonder, is there any thought being given to trying to encourage the restaurant to maybe send the takeout out a different way, so we're not bringing people, kind of more people into that storefront than we need to from a health perspective?
Sure. And again, it's always nice to work with the folks that this is affecting. In our walking it and talking to some of the owners or managers, the other concern that I wasn't aware of, because ours was like people just using the restroom, but most of the businesses have the kitchen and back. So in order to go to the front to order, they're always constantly passing the kitchen. So there's a concern about just, trying to keep it clean.
Yeah,
And so that was something they had brought up, why they've closed the back. It wasn't the city mandating anything. They made the choice to close the back.
yeah, no, and I think that's a good choice. I mean, I don't think you want people coming into the restaurant. So I think to the extent they want to discourage it, I think they're right. But if there was a way just to kind of maybe just deliver it at the back door so people don't come in and
Sure.
they don't even come to the front. They don't walk through the diners who are sitting in the front. They're just not even on the Ave. It seems like that might be a good alternative. Maybe it's logistically too difficult for them, but especially as the parklets are, if anything, enhancing this situation, right? Because when I was there, the Ave was closed and the tables, I did have to walk through the tables, but they were at least pretty spread out. Now they're going to be pretty concentrated in front of the restaurant, and it might be exacerbated. I did experience the parklets at Stella Alpina, but there's a lot of sidewalk space that separates the parklet area from their door. So that was less of an issue there, but they have a very kind of particular layout.
And that's a great question that we will ask if they want to direct their takeout business and back. And maybe it's logistically, not logistically, but providing the information to the person picking up, oh, we're located here, because there's no signage. It's tough, right? You don't have that.
Yeah. I mean, there are a few restaurants that back up to Burlingame Ave where it's pretty easy, actually, if you know where to go. And there's a lot of parking and stuff. So, it's a good, to the extent we don't want to create huge crowds in the Ave. It's a way to do it.
We've been trying to, we posed the question to working with the DBID, because they have the businesses, like, where do you think good drop off or pickup locations? We're not against doing that. We had a couple, and we probably were, and some of the businesses we'll see if that may be impacted. If we provide curbside pickup for retailers, right? Because they're afraid they might lose parking, and this is depending on your type of business. If it's a quick turnaround, maybe this helps. So into that, but it's just they need to help us with the locations, because
right. Well, that's great to hear, and I continue to think that'll be would be a great improvement for normal times to come, if they ever come again. And we have a lot of traffic on the Ave, and in Broadway.
Vice Chair Wet, and I agree with you. I think that's actually a really good point. But of course, I understand they don't want restaurants who have that backdoor option. They don't want people coming into the restaurant to use the restroom or walking past the kitchen. But certainly, in the beginning of shelter in place, when things first opened, they just put a table across the doorway, like at Starbucks or whatever, and you walk up to the table, someone sees you, and hands your order to you over the table, and the table blocks entry to the restaurant. So I think that would still be something that would be worthwhile exploring for those restaurants that have a pleasant, easy access, not like one of the alleys next to a dumpster kind of thing. I don't think it should be forced on them, but it would be a good option for some of those restaurants.
When parking is actually bad on the Ave and you need to pick up food, actually, sometimes I'd be happy to drive into an alley next to a dumpster rather than have to try and find parking. It's not a problem we have right now, but.
True. Are there any other comments or any other questions on this issue?
Commissioner Martos, I believe, is raised. Yep.
Go ahead, Commissioner Martos.
You saw my virtual hand raise. Good. I didn't see it in my own video there. Just one more quick question, Mr. Wong. It's just a question that occurred to me. I was on the Ave having dinner this weekend, and I saw lots of bikers riding down the Ave. Some of them not very carefully, riding wheelies down the avenue. Because it was closed, there was more space, but I was wondering, is bike riding allowed on the sidewalks on the Ave?
Through the chair, I'm nodding my head. I know the answer to that, but it's not yet. No, in business districts, bicyclists are not allowed to ride on the sidewalks. So if a residential, I think per our code, if you can ride on the sidewalk, and if you come across a pedestrian, you have to yield right away to him. Again, Sergeant Perna can correct me on that, but I believe after, yeah, that's my take on it. But and again, part of that riding wheelies and riding down the avenue with that is what kind of was part of the problem that the closure created.
And without masks, I'll add, youngsters. But okay, yeah, I don't know that there'll be anybody to actually enforce people not riding bicycles on the sidewalk there, but just a thought I had. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And that was a great presentation. Okay, let's move on to what was item 6A, which is the community BPAC update. I don't see anyone from the BPAC joining us this evening.
So if I might, they did indicate that they were going to come. Miss Beatty indicated to me earlier today that she was going to come, but I think she had some conflicts with a school open house or some such thing. So maybe she's still there, and I would hope that if she does arrive, we'll be able to hear from her even.
I believe it is back to school night for just about every school in the district right now. I have kids in each of the schools, and they all have back to school nights going right now.
Right. So I would hope if she shows up before we adjourn, that she'll be able to speak.
Okay. I remember back.
Oh, I'm sorry.
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 I had a question.
Yes, sorry, through the chair. Just want to let you know they've postponed their meeting to the 17th because of back to school night. So they did not meet today.
Okay, thank you.
Right, that's true, but I
Try to be here.
yeah, she was trying and be here tonight. I know because I was texting her or emailing her earlier today, but she must have gotten tied up or something. But they indeed are going to have a meeting on the 17th, largely because of the back to school night, which conflicted with most of those young folks who have kids in school.
Okay, we'll see.
Yes, thanks.
Okay, thanks for letting me know. And then let's move then on to the grant opportunities update. Mr. Wong.
All right, thank you, Chair Rizzo. So again, we definitely have plenty of grant applications we've been working on. Just to give you an update, right now, we've been working on three different programs that we've been applying for. The first one that we've already submitted was the Transportation Fund for Clean Air, this TFCA, and I'll give you the little details on that. And the one that we are currently applying for that's due September 21st is the one that Commissioner Launder spoke of, the county's pedestrian bicycle program, Cycle 5. So quickly go over the TFCA program. It's an air quality program so it's a Transportation Fund for Clean Air. And this is an unusual one. First off, there was a quick timeline. Usually there's a little over a month to apply for these. This one just had 3 weeks. And they have a total of $550,000 for this program. And as you can see, the minimum grant award is $100,000 and the maximum is $500,000. So potentially one agency, depending on the project, could take the whole bag, or 5 agencies will be taking the whole bag because of the minimum grant award. So it was a little unusual, though we still applied. So we'll be competing against cities, towns, counties, transit agencies within San Mateo County. And we can partner with someone else, but those are different things. And this one was also a little different because there were 2 programs you could apply for. One was what they call the arterial management program and utilizing advanced technology, but it's only, so these would be enhancing any of our major corridors, California, Broadway, Rollins, using technology for the traffic signals, but it's only directed at the signals, intersections located on a smart corridor program. And some of you may not be familiar with, but years ago, the county CCAG put together a program that if it was an incident management program for 101, if something were to occur, and you may have seen these, they're small changeable message signs that would direct you off the highway onto local streets. Caltrans would take over our signals and the other signals, and depending on which agency you're with, not just Burlingame, to direct you around it. There would be signs saying go here, and then come across. Of course, this was also before the app smartphone features and everything else that we have out there that kind of do that. But this was a program in place that allowed cities to coordinate more of their signals. And we can actually see some of the signals here in our office. So that was a benefit for the cities to get some of this technology so we can look at it. So that's where that's aimed at. So it's only a handful of signals in our jurisdiction that was eligible for that. And that's one that we applied for, as well as traffic calming projects, a quick build or bicycle pedestrian improvements. So when we were on the call discussing this, it was only really striping and signing projects. And if this sounds familiar, at least, and one of the things is you had to have some outreach done or a study. And that came with our Lion Hope, seemed to fit that perfect. So as you can see, what our two projects are. So we've got the Lion Hope traffic calming improvements. So we've got the phase 1 improvements, which are basically striping and signing improvements and delineators, things like that, things that you can put down relatively quick. We were thinking we could try to use this because the tricky part about this is the timing. This money won't become eligible until towards the end of the year. And this is a project we wanted to start earlier to try to get in as quick as possible. So we're balancing that number, but we also thought we can use this for the more permanent improvements, the raised features. But as it's indicated earlier, they were looking for quick build, even though they might be designed, they want quick build is associated with striping and signs. So we're gonna see how this works out. So if it works out and we can time it right, great. If not, we've already kind of prepared for building this one ourselves. And as I mentioned, the Smart Corridor Detection Improvement Project, again, it was just improvements that we can do on the Smart Corridor intersections. And I'll show you where those are. So we decided we were gonna upgrade the detection, enhance the detection at those intersections with video detection on those. So that was something we looked at. So I won't go into detail on this, but again, here are the improvements we were talking about. These red lines are, I can blow it up a little bit. The red lines here are temporary speed cushions. So those are the rubberized ones that you can bolt down to the ground. So if the community just totally hates it, we're able to pop those up. So these are trial ones. So we're not installing the we're not using our paving program to install those. It's tough to see, but there are some circles here. Those are the traffic circles. Initially, we're going to put these in with delineators and then striping to indicate that it's a circle, just to try them out as a trial basis, similar to something we did at Larkspur Linden before we put in the full nicely landscaped iteration. The striping are the high visibility crosswalks that you can see here. And then at the intersections, these would also be bulb outs, but we would use delineators and striping to kind of mark it out and give it kind of a feel of it, where there's an area that's definitely delineated for not vehicles, but for pedestrians, just to get them into the street, but not into the travel lane. And so those are those improvements. I think that covers them all. So those are quick things you can do, literally striping and the delineators. On the next line. So this is our only corridor, California Drive and Broadway, that's on the Smart Corridor program. And so what we'd be talking about are 6 intersections, starting at California Bayswater, California Howard, California Burlingame Avenue, and California Oak Grove. Those would become video. We would add video detection to them. Video detection it helps us by not only being a different technology, it will pick up bikes more readily, any type of bike. It doesn't have to be a metal Ferris bike. The other one would be Carmelita, and because of the interchange project, the intersections of Broadway and Rollins already have video detection. And then lastly, the last one would be Airport Bay Shore and Broadway. So those 6 would we're hoping would get video detection. The second pot of money that we discussed is the San Mateo County pedestrian bicycle program, Cycle 5. Again, this is your tax dollars from Measure A and Measure W being used for projects just for bicycle and pedestrian improvements to encourage walking. Again, anyone in San Mateo County. Eligible projects. They have a bicycle pedestrian improvement project. I'm sorry. It's broken up into 2, large capital and small capital. There's a total of almost $8 million for both projects. Small capital project is considered under $1 million, and we'd be limited to $700,000 per request on that. Whereas I think what we're going for on some of the projects that you'll see are large capital projects over $1 million, and we'll be limited to $2 million per request. There's kind of the breakdown of the points, and you'll see, because we're finally in a better position for going for these grants because of having these traffic calming study or bike ped master plan. It gives us a little bit more both on need and readiness. We've done the public outreach. So from the bike ped master plan, and I think we've always had this. It shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but California Drive from Broadway to Oak Grove, what to do with that section. And previously we've submitted applications on this, but finally we've identified it in the bike ped master plan. We've shown some options. And so the next phase of this would be to have outreach to the businesses, a couple more community meetings, but outreach to the businesses directly and residents that live along that section, and working with them which option works best along with our bicycle community. Once we do that, what we're asking for funds to take those, whatever we decide out of it, straight to construction. Again, it shouldn't be too bad because it's striping, mostly striping, sign related, but that's what we're hoping. And if you've gone and taken the tour from the bike ped master plan, what's going on, you'll see some of the options. Those aren't, and you'll see it here, but those are just, the bigger ideas that have come up, and they're not written in stone, but we can modify or tweak them. But that's kind of the general idea, give people an idea of what can go out there. The next one is the Burlingame Station pedestrian improvements. So Lionhogue borders the Caltrain station downtown. So there were some improvements that we had shown to the community that we vetted and would make the entrance on East Lane, improve the access there and improve the kind of coordination. So if you looked at the master plan online, these are kind of the alternatives. We can remove parking, again, removal of parking and put in protected bike lanes on one side, and then have protected bike lane, or, this can easily be flipped to the other way where parking is still against the curb, but just shows you what we can do with the space. So that gives us a little better idea than we previously had, but at least we have something to show folks so we can kind of work with them. So that's the effort we're hoping on the bike ped master plan gives us. But again, we'll take this information to the actual neighborhood, if you want to call it that, along California Drive, and then work there to get an ultimate concept that we will advance to final design and construction. And the improvements we're talking on the east side of the station, this is, sorry, but this is the tennis court parking lot for those of you who aren't familiar. The tracks are here, and then this white spot on the bottom is Burlingame Station. So if you've been out there, and this is Burlingame Avenue on your way to the community center. So right now, it doesn't look this way, right? Most of this green is not here, so it's pretty wide over here. We've got some on-street parking here. We've got cars coming out here. It's not quite defined. So this would just improve access for both pedestrians to get to the station, get around the station, but also slow things down, right? You can see we're adding these, we're greening this up and tightening it up. So just give folks walking in the area, and I'm sure Commissioner Wander can speak of it because he walks here, but just tighten it up so it feels more it's a little more organized. So something that we're looking at pointing out. So with that, those are the grants. Just to give you for this last one, the Transportation Authorities grant. The projects are, sorry. So the call came out on August 7th. We've been working on it. The applications are due on the 21st, and then sometime between November, December, the rankings will come out. So by then we'll know. That's it. Sorry about that. Happy to take some of your questions now.
All right. Does anyone, any of the commissioners have any questions or comments that you'd like to make? Let me see if I can find Commissioner Wander. Okay.
I actually raised my blue hand too.
Oh, you know, I can't see it, only Mr. Wong can, but if you go like this, I'll see that too. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Wong. I was just curious, and it's probably more of my confusion than anything. How many total applications are we making, and how much are they for?
Sorry about that. So for each program, the two different grant programs, we're submitting 2 applications. The first one, the Clean Air one, we had 2, one for the arterial signal management, and then the other for the quick build, which is the striping projects in Lion Hogue.
Right.
Then the county one, we're submitting 2 applications, one for the work on the near the rail station, and then the other one being California Drive.
Okay, and how much for each of those are we asking for?
We're still finalizing the numbers, but it's probably going to be the second program, which is something closer to maybe over $1 million. But we're still tweaking those numbers, so it's going to be, it's definitely not cheap, but it's probably close. The actual project cost probably between 500 and $1 million. So we have to see where we actually land.
Well, it's very commendable that there's actually 4 applications for these various projects around town, and hopefully we'll be able to snag some money for some of them at least.
Well, you can, a lot of this is due to, we now have our new transportation programs manager, which is providing a little bit more assistance, and been a big help on these. So
that's good. Oh, thank you very much.
Excellent. Anyone else with questions or concerns?
Has raised his hand.
I'm sorry, who?
Commissioner Martos.
Oh, Commissioner Martos, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, Mr. Wong. Couple questions. So the video detection on California, I was curious about that. So that improves throughput, is that right? Video cameras know when there's traffic, or what is it exactly? Sorry.
It allows us another way, because right now there's sensors in the ground that you trip when you drive over it. And the controller that there's a car there, or potentially how fast the car is going. The video detection will give us just tighten that up a little bit, because right now we're not able to detect certain types of bicycles. And then sometimes when, say, those loops, we call them, they're made of metal, they can break. And then there's no detection, or it weakens the detection. So this just gives us a redundancy too. And yes, there also means there's less downtime when something's there. When we resurface, we've been coming up with the issue where we have to put the signals in a recall mode, which isn't the most efficient. but it allows that when there's no sensors, you've seen it. You've seen it when signals been on recall, because you'll sit there sometimes and you'll be the only car at the intersection, yet it'll go through all the other approaches before it comes back to you. It'll help us reduce that amount of downtime because we'll always have detection at the intersection.
Got it. So I was curious about Broadway and Carol Ann and the next streets up. Those all have some sort of detection. That's a terrible, terrible intersection. So do we already have facilities there that
Yes, and actually,
move traffic?
yeah, I'll correct myself. The city actually installed these. These weren't part of the interchange. I was thinking they have cameras up for the interchange project, but they were just meant for, again, part of that smart corridor project where they're zooming in to tell you if what's the traffic. So someone at Caltrans in Oakland can look at it and see what the flow is before he knows whether to take it on, keep the detour on or turn it off. So staff put those in and they've been in, but detection there isn't necessarily the issue. It's
Right.
It's everything else.
Right. Right. I see. Okay. And so if you go back to your California Drive facility improvements, the next grant, I want to see East Lane again. Yeah, keep going down to East Lane. There you go. And scroll up a little bit. Yeah, up a little bit. Right there, stop. So you have a limit line there on Burlingame Avenue?
Right here?
Well, is it that dotted line that's like
No, I'm sorry.
30 feet back? Oh, okay.
That's just the limit. I'm sorry. It's just a note we had. That's a limit line for the extent of the work.
Oh.
So it was just showing
Okay.
the limits of work, the area.
Okay. I thought it was like limit line at the stop sign. Not okay. Different limit line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good catch.
Well, all right. I don't want to be stopping that far back from the stop sign. Okay, good. All right. Yeah, that was it. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. I hope. And for the first grant with the Lion Hogue, we will know something in October or November, or how soon?
I will actually ask Ms. Mai if she can jump in on that. I think that it's close, but I'll see if she has the better date for you.
Sure. So October 15th is when CCAG staff will be bringing before their board approval of the selected projects. Prior to that, the cities who have been selected should have already been notified. So we're really hoping beginning of August, we would know whether or not we've been selected. So to what Mr. Wong had said, we're positioning the project where we will still go out for advertisement. We are limiting the amount of, delay in starting the project, but at the same time, want to kind of have a sweet spot right in October, where if we do get selected, we can roll into construction.
Okay, thank you. And so then, can we get at the next Teaspoon meeting, can we get a status update on that, whether we were selected or not?
We may, if it's the 15th, we will give you an update. They may not be at the next meeting because I think it falls just after our.
Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Great. I love those projects. Fingers crossed. Okay, then I think that we are ready to move onto information items with the engineering division reports. Mr. Wong, you're going to be talking a lot tonight, sorry.
No problem, I think we're getting close, but this is a short one. Just want to give you an update. Lots FNN. They're working on the third deck. We're also working on the RFP for the EV charging that's going on the bottom, and then the wayfinding for the garage. This is it's anticipated we have the wayfinding that tells you, so you're outside the garage, you can see which outside where you want to go. Like, is level 5 open? How many spaces are open there, and something like that to just make sure we keep things moving. So that's what we're working on. Again, next spring is hopefully when we get this, and yeah, we'll hopefully things are better where we can actually utilize the parking garage. But that's the update on that. What's not on here, but I'll just because I was out there today, Carolyn Avenue. If you notice, Summerhill's been working on it, and they messed up. Well, they took out our nice bicycle facilities on there. They will be restriping tomorrow and Friday, so we will get that back. And it's also nice because normally contractors just patch in what they did, and we had them go, because it was our nice new street, we had them go from curb to curb. So there's 2 seams on each end of the roadway that you might see, but it's not like pieces where other places will just put back in what they took out. So that was part of the condition that they had to, because it was a nice new street prior to that. So that's in, and that's quickly our engineer's report for this month. Oh,
Sorry, Commissioner Launder, took me a second to find my unmute button. Please go ahead.
It takes me a long time most of the time. Just a quick question, Mr. Wong. The new parking structure, the EV charging stations, are they going to be on every level or just on certain levels?
and I will check on this. I know they'll be on the ground level, and I know that's what we're looking for. I think, and I'll have to check and get back to you if we're providing or trying to get the infrastructure to be ready on the other levels or providing something. I'll have to check on that, but I know it's the spaces that we're looking for immediately are on the ground level. So let me.
Right, I appreciate that. I know that there's, I think if I recall, 23, there's gonna be 23 chargers, and they are the, whatever it is, level 2 chargers. So they're the ones that are not the quick chargers like over by Pick of the Litter, but they're the chargers that even Tesla drivers could use without a special adapter. So I'm looking forward to that. It should be a quite good place to park your EV and also to park your regular car, and we'll leave some of the stress on parking situation downtown, especially with the parklets and the other things that are taking up downtown spaces, and get those cars in the parking structure. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
Great, awesome. Okay, I think we are now ready for Sergeant Perna.
I think Commissioner Wetton.
Oh,
Sorry.
sorry, Commissioner Wetton, go ahead, please.
No worries. I came in late. No, I just want to double click on the point you made, Mr. Wong, about having the infrastructure to expand down the road. Because obviously demand for charging is very different today than what it might be in 5 years. We don't necessarily have to put chargers on every level if it won't be utilized, but as long as we have, I know that when we toured the new building on California, they said there was only like 2 chargers, but when I asked them about it, they said the piping, the conduits run through the whole garage, and it can just continually be expanded as the demand ramps up. So I would like to just confirm that this garage is set up accordingly in a world 10 years from now when there are a lot more EVs that we're able to accommodate it.
Yeah, no, well, I need to know that for myself too.
Yeah.
So.
I have another question about EV charging, but I'm going to reserve it for commissioners' comments because it's not on this. So.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Vice Chair Wetton, did you mean with communications that you were going to reserve it to the end when we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me clarify. Okay, so now, Sergeant Perna, we are all yours. I hope everyone was able to take a look at the report. It's actually kind of nice because there are far fewer incidents and no DUIs, but take it away.
Yes. So, yeah, the accidents were down again, and this is for the month of August. There were 11 documented collisions here. Looks like 4 of them were injury collisions. Just to piggyback on what you said about DUI enforcement, we've actually been running because of the pandemic. We had to stop all of our OTS operations, which is the grant that we normally have. However, once some of the restrictions subsided, we've basically been running a DUI operation every weekend. So I think that's really what's contributed to the lack of there's no DUI collisions, and I like to think that's part of the reason, a big reason why. Hopefully that doesn't change for the month of September, but they've been out there every weekend. Just this last weekend, they had 2 arrests. I believe the weekend before they had 2 arrests as well. So we've really been utilizing those, that grant, and we were awarded another grant. I don't think it's been officially, released. Like we don't have the information yet, but we tentatively have approval for the next grant period as well, which it's the same grant we've been doing for a few years now. So it's been successful for DUI enforcement. So we're hoping to keep it going. As far as the crashes go, if you have a look, if there's any of them that pique your interest, there was one, the one that is California and Lorton. That one actually was kind of in the roundabout. That involved a bicyclist riding west, riding in the crosswalk. There was, it's funny, one of you earlier mentioned the hordes of, the big group of kids on the bicycles. This was one of them. So a big group of bicyclists rode through. The motorists thought they'd all gone through. Then one straggler was still on the crosswalk on his bicycle, which is actually against the law. It was a very minor, from what I understand, and speaking with the officer, it was a minor collision, but it did happen. And also, I was monitoring. I was listening all along. It is illegal to ride on the sidewalks. When a lot of times we have our Apple officer down there. It's someone that's paid for by Apple. Whoever that is normally tries to tell them, don't walk your bicycles or don't ride on, but they're sort of limited. They sort of have to stay in that area there at Burlingame Avenue and Park. They're not able to chase anybody down over someone riding their bicycle or not wearing a mask or anything. But generally, they've been doing that is sort of provide reminders to those types of kids that are doing that.
I had one question about one of the accidents, the one at Carolyn and Cadillac Way.
Mhm.
It seems like that seems to be a place where we see accidents more frequently than other intersections.
I would have to look to see what the actual statistics are on that to see if there are more. I agree with you though. It does seem like that location does come up more often than not. But that collision involved, it looks like just 2 motorists. Let's see if I have the summary. This is actually a vehicle entering Carolyn from a driveway. So there was a vehicle going south on Carolyn, and there was someone pulling out of a driveway that didn't yield to the vehicle that had the right of way. So that they were exiting a 1095 Carolyn. So the driver would have been found at fault for failing to yield.
So it wasn't really that the dynamics of the intersection at Cadillac Way. It could have happened anywhere.
Yeah. So it wasn't actually at the intersection. No, it was in front of 1095 Carolyn. The closest cross street would have been Cadillac, it's a little funny the way it comes out on the report there, but that's just so that you get a sense of what the closest street was to where the collision occurred.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Martos.
Hello. More of a question for Mr. Wong. The legality of riding a bicycle on the sidewalk, do we have any signage anywhere in the city that says that? I think probably most 98% of the teenagers or kids don't know that. I'm wondering if it might be good to put 1 or 2 in strategic positions on the avenue on some pole that says, walk your bike or city ordinance, bicycles, riding bicycles prohibited, something. I have not seen anything, but I just wonder if that might be something we could consider for Burlingame Ave.
And I'll check through the chair. I'll check. I thought we had some on Burlingame Avenue, especially when we did streetscape. That may say no skateboard riding. I will double check that, but yeah, if not, that's fair. It's up for, Sergeant Perna to enforce it if there aren't any, but let me double check that. I thought that we had something on both Broadway and Burlingame Avenue.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we have our city ordinance, but there may be signage there. I'm not 100% sure. It may be at the top and the bottom of the avenue, but if memory serves, but we'd have to take a look.
It wouldn't actually be like a bad thing to include as sort of an elementary school, middle school education through PTAs in schools, so that, I mean, that's kind of how it was in the old days. You would start to learn things like that through the schools or PTA activities, bicycle safety and things like that. I mean, not that we wouldn't do the signs also, but you know, that might be something worthwhile.
You could also maybe have them put it in e-news as well. That might be like fun, like a good little safety tip or something like that. We could start putting in something like that in the e-news.
That's a great idea, you know, because parents will read that and they'll be like, oh, I didn't realize, or, oh, I better make sure that, you know, little Johnny is aware. So I think that'd be worthwhile doing, especially because there's going to be more bike riding with more kids at home and hopefully continued good weather. Any other comments? All right, thank you very much, Sergeant Perna. I think we'll move now to, well, Farmers Market is kind of not active at this time. So let's move on to Teaspoon Chair Commissioner's Communications. And I believe my co-chair already said he has something he would like to mention.
Vice Chair. Stop promoting me.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just real quick, because you brought up EV charging, Mr. Wong. I just wanted to point out that I was down on Broadway and Lot Y, and we still have quite a large amount of real estate dedicated to EV charging that is basically unused. And to be fair, people aren't out and about right now anyway, but it's not compatible with Teslas, which are the most common, one of the most common EV vehicles used in town. And so we've just got this real estate that's, you know, not being utilized. And maybe it's okay right now because of COVID, but as I would anticipate parking becomes constrained again, we'd want that to be utilized. And also, you know, I think for the sake of the businesses on Burlingame, I think, you know, I think it's actually very good that we have EV charging in that location. People will stop and they'll use the businesses on Broadway, but only if it works. So just an observation. I know that company had talked about adopting Tesla compatibility. I thought it would have happened earlier in the year. Obviously, COVID happened too, but it might be something when we have bandwidth again to bug them about. I don't know what, you know, they don't benefit either. Like I said, I don't know how they're benefiting from having those things sit empty.
Sure, through the chair, and I'll drop a check in with Miss Michael, Miss Skull, Michael, see if she's gotten an update. Right, obviously, I've been out there too, and I've seen the same thing you have, like plenty of space in there and no EV vehicles charging there. So
yeah.
Yep, Commissioner Wander.
So just to piggyback on Commissioner Wetton, I just demoted you. Commissioner Wetton's comment on the pick of the litter lot or Lot Y. So those, and Sagala Michaels, the sustainability coordinator, spoke at our Citizens Environmental Council meeting last night, and she said that indeed it's not being very well utilized, and the company does not share their information with the city. That was part of the deal they paid for them, I guess, and they have the exclusive rights to the data. So she hasn't been able to get any kind of usage data. It's only just when she goes there from time to time, or when somebody from the city goes there and reports back to her, or
Yeah.
somebody like us reports to her. So she said they're underutilized for sure, but she doesn't know, and nobody really knows how much underutilized they are. So
Yeah. Thank you.
Comment to that, and I don't have any other further comments. So
That's very helpful. I would just say, I think we all have our eyeballs. I don't know if it's a really hard number to estimate based on every observation I've seen.
right. It's
It's not hard to count.
yeah, and we're all pretty good at counting. And
Yeah, especially when there's that little to count.
When it's single digits, it's
yeah.
That's a good day. In the times I've been there, that would be a good day if you find something. Yeah.
Any other communications from the public or? Okay, it's been a slow month. Okay, let's move on then to item 8, committee and subcommittee reports. I have a feeling there hasn't been a lot of activity. Downtown parking, anything? I mean, we're sort of in a time of flux, but I don't want to just assume that nothing's going on. Broadway parking, I know we have not discussed because of COVID. School traffic, we have not discussed. Their kids are not going to school this year for now. And then citywide transportation alternatives, I think that's probably on hold for now as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so then we'll move to future agenda items. It sounds like it would be, we may be able to hear back something regarding the grant results, perhaps.
Perhaps, I mean, if we have something or we found out, we will include it somehow. We'll include it in here, and even if it's decided that week and it's not in here, we'll put it in. We'll address it under the informational items. Hopefully, we'll have met with Caltrain regarding the signal at Oak Grove and Carolyn, so we can try to bring that. That's something that's still on us to bring back to you. And again, obviously, we'll follow up. I mean, I think almost like the BPAC item is on there. We're going to probably leave the closure item on there to give you guys updates and yeah, just to let you know if there's any, because all your input's been good about what we can do or what we can check in with the merchants, retailers, restaurateurs about. So we'll continue that item on there and that item is always changing. It's different when we first started this discussion. And yeah, we have a couple things that we need to touch back on either about tables and limiting pickup to the rear. And Commissioner Wetton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Warren. I mean, I would just throw one thought out there as this is kind of continuing. You know, at first, you know, this all came on fast, and the street closures were happening before we could weigh in, and it was a one-off, and then it was a two-off. And now that it seems to be kind of an ongoing theme here, and before we know it, we'll be dealing with this for the holiday shopping. I wanted to throw a suggestion out there, especially since a lot of our other agenda items have gotten very light because things that we thought were going to be big problems like downtown parking are not, or school issues, which are usually a challenge for us, not. That if there is another decision point about these closures, rather than us hearing about it after the fact and then having a very light meeting on schedule, if we should consider scheduling the meeting so that we can weigh in a timely manner. And then, you know, either accelerate a meeting or do a special meeting or something, because it seems like we're adhering to our normal schedule, which is, I think, typically a good practice, but then we keep missing the opportunity to weigh in on the most important traffic and safety and parking issue before the city. And I would rather have a off calendar meeting and cover what's important than have a perfectly on calendar cadence and keep missing the one thing that's important and then have pretty light calendar otherwise. So I just want to throw that out there for people's consideration
And-
as a way to maybe handle it.
I've been thinking along the same lines, in that, decisions seem to be having to be made rapidly as times change. But I think part of that, and I totally agree with everything you said. I think part of it is also like how much input does city council want from us? Because of the situation, they sort of forged forward, making quick decisions because they had to. So I think maybe I should have a conversation with the mayor to see, are they still wanting our input for these quick decisions? Because I felt the same way,
Yeah.
sort of we're not participating.
Well, look, the challenge is we all may go back and speak to different members of the city council. And I had a separate conversation with another member of the city council. And, the feedback I got was, I wish you guys met more often so we could get your input. And I don't know that we necessarily have to meet more often, but maybe we have to be a little bit more flexible in our calendaring than we normally would because of the circumstances. So I would like to think that the reality is that they don't want to wait. They don't want to wait for our perfectly regularly scheduled meeting to do something, but I don't know that they don't want the input if it comes in at the right time, or at least that's my hope.
That's good to hear. I was just thinking, I see you, Commissioner Lunder, I'll grab you. But that's good to hear. I didn't mean to imply that. I just was thinking that we are sort of a more studied, slower, thorough approach. And I was hoping that they would still, want our feedback. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have maybe our regular scheduled meetings and then have a special meeting for just one particular topic that needs to be addressed in a timely fashion. Wouldn't take a huge amount of our time, hopefully. So I like that idea. Maybe this could be an agenda item. I don't know. Is that something that we could have city council person join us, or is this something that we should just do on the side? But I'm going to let Commissioner Lunder go ahead, please.
Sure. I think to the extent that we can help them out, I think they value the input. But I think if we have special meetings every now and again, it would probably reduce their desire for us to meet twice a month on a schedule. So if we had a special meeting every now and again, and especially when there's like a crisis, that would eliminate having to have a meeting. And as much as I like to see all of you, I think we could handle it with just a special meeting from time to time, and that would perhaps reduce their desire to have us meet twice a month. And I know in the summer it was just difficult because they were on vacation as well. So it was sort of like, they weren't getting, their 2 meetings a month. They were gone the last meeting in July and the first meeting in August. So there was a period of time when it was just sort of like everything was kind of like up for grabs, and the staff, did a great job, everything considered. And we're not playing by any rules or anything nowadays. Everything is sort of by the seat of the pants. And so, we had a lot of moving parts, and some of the parts weren't even around those times. And so, I think we did quite well, actually, everything considered. And I think we still can give them the proper feedback and have a special meeting from time to time. So I agree with you and co-chair Wetton. I had to think about that. Anyway, thank you.
Through the chair. I'm going to object to that, but I just would add as a historical note, it's not unprecedented. So when, in particular, I recall 2 instances, I think it was in the same year when Caltrans was looking to do this huge project on Floribunda that was very unpopular in the city. And also when we were trying to make some progress towards solving the traffic issues at Hoover before Hoover opened. I think this was both when I was chair. We just called special meetings. We just said there's no way to respond to this in a timely manner without calling a special meeting. And we didn't ask anybody. We just did it. We put it on the agenda. We called it, and we drilled in on those two particular issues. Now, whether everyone liked what we came up with, that's a different issue. But there was no point of order about calling a special meeting and addressing it. And really, it was our only opportunity in both cases.
Okay, that's good to know. You know, some of these actionable items, like I wasn't even aware of until after they were already approved. You know, so it was, you know, I think maybe I just needed to be more in touch with the city council, but it's been a really weird year, and it's just been, like you said, flying by the seat of your pants, with things changing so rapidly. Well, I think that's a good conversation that we just had, and I think I didn't realize that had been done in the past. Historically, that's good to know. Were there any other major agenda items that I mean, I looked at our priority list. I believe we've covered everything we set up to cover at the beginning of the year when we did our priority list, or that we can, you know, at this point. So I don't really have anything specifically for the agenda then next month.
And we can try. I'm sorry, just these meetings seem to be occurring when you're at home and doing some of the work and not having the regular routine. Yeah, I've been popping in like, oh, it's coming up. So they've been creeping up on us quickly. But yeah, we can speak when we have our pre-agenda meeting. We'll try to speak. We could check in. But again, we can touch on those. And yeah, definitely, it's always the option of the chair and vice chair. If we want to have a special meeting, just we need to have, I believe it's 2 days in order to notice it. So we at least need that leeway, and then we can discuss. And I believe.
One question, Mr. Wong, through the chair. I mean, it might be worthwhile just asking now. These changes in the street closures, they seem to be periodic. It might be helpful to just know when's the next inflection point? When's the next time we're going to look and say, okay, we're shifting gears. So we, you know, because it may happen before we even have our pre-agenda meeting. So.
And as staff, we don't know this. We're reacting to whatever the latest order is. And then, you know, that's when the inflection point came. Like, what do we do? Because they're no longer allowed indoor dining. Mm. So we went to this, and then there was it's their subcommittee, the Economic Development Subcommittee, is the one that kind of gets this first and works on it. And I can check. You know, I believe that's an open meeting that we can you listen in and have input if you want, no different than anyone else that goes on there, like the merchants. But at least hearing some of it. But that's when we've been reacting. Is we'll take it to that, talk about it, and then decide what to bring to council, and then that's where it's going. So I agree with you. If we can tell you when it's coming, it'd be more than happy. But we've we've turned so many times on this, that we've had so many discussions that, and it just changes whenever. And you know, the number you can expect next time you see when we drop from purple to red is probably the next time we'll probably revisit and see how things are going. And sorry, so long way of saying we don't know.
Well, I guess that's a good way to. That's still helpful, Mr. Wong, because then we should all make a mental note that when we drop from purple status, we should all maybe go on alert. And I guess since I am the vice chair, maybe the chair and I should make a mental note to connect when that happens and say, okay, connect with you, Mr. Wong, and say, all right, is something happening faster? Should we react and set something up?
Yeah, we'll just throw it on here. The agenda will be this agenda minus it will be only the discussion on these things minus everything else, the streamline for that special meeting. Yeah.
Sounds good. I think it's a good conversation we had about how we can work in these new times, be flexible and active. So All right, then, I believe that wraps up our meeting.
All right.
I think meeting is adjourned tonight. Thank you very much.
All right.